Welcome to the Open Mic Podcast Show with Mike Midgley.
Hey, and welcome to the Open Mic Podcast. On today's episode, I'm both honoured and privileged to be covering the exciting topic of inbound organisations. Today's influencer guest is Dan Tyre, employee number 6 and director at HubSpot, Boston-based HQ world leader in technology for the inbound revolution that will help you grow better. And also Dan is the co-author of the Inbound Organization, which a copy of is hardback here and worn out already.
I like that. I like that when the interviewer has a copy of my book. That shows you did your research, Mike. Boom!
And I've both listened to the audio and I've been through it and I've done part of the worksheets as well. So
no way! What did you think of the audio? Did you like my audio?
Awesome, absolutely. To be fair, Dan, I was surprised. I thought you'd have done the inbound sales book, not the inbound organization book, and so I thought I got a bit of a left curve to start with.
Okay, so there's a funny story there. Brian Signorelli, who wrote the inbound selling book, that's what it's called. He said, "Tyre, you should write this book." I go, "No, I'm too busy. I got other stuff." He goes, "Would you write the foreword?" So my old boss, Mark Roberge, who wrote his own book called The Sales Acceleration Formula.
Amazing book.
Totally agree. You and I were talking about scaling sales teams.
Yep.
Roberge was, first of all, I worked with him for 7 years. I worked directly reporting to him. And the guy has good hair, right? Not our kind of hair. He's got hair that sticks straight up. Second of all, he is super smart. Third of all, he's the best vice president of sales I ever worked for because he's not a vice president of sales.
Yeah,
he's
a person.
And he's a scientist. And he was the first person I ever saw who applied scientific precedence to the sales process. Then Signorelli, everybody calls him Sig, Brian Sig. He is a sales master. And he's like, somebody has to put all of this stuff about what you do all the time and what we do all the time at HubSpot in a book. I'm like, all right, Sig, write it. He goes, but you're the guy who invented it. I go, I didn't invent it. I was just there at the beginning. I'm the Forrest Gump of HubSpot. He said, all right, you got to write the foreword. So I'm like, okay, I'll write the foreword.
Yeah,
right?
amazing.
It's super fun. And then I concentrated on the 12 things that I learned over working at HubSpot. I just celebrated my 12th year anniversary.
Amazing. Congratulations.
It was amazing. And when we did the inbound organization, this is a funny story. Do you do funny stories on your podcast?
All the time. Usually I'm the star subject.
So your audience likes funny stories?
Indeed.
Okay, you came to the right podcast, man. Because I wrote the book and Todd Hockenberry's the co-author. Yes. Right. We did every single chapter we did together. Right. I spent more time with Todd than I spent with my wife in 2017. And Todd is the best co-author in the history of books. Right. You know, I got all this big energy and I'm like yelling and screaming. Todd is like, he's kind. He's logical. He thinks things out. His beautiful wife, Leanne, and his daughter was in the background, like coordinating all this stuff. I thought writing a book was just talking. I thought I do podcasts all the time. I just write a book. It's just like nothing. And so we spend literally hundreds and hundreds of hours getting the book. It's super fun. And then they're like, okay, you've sold enough books. We want you to do the audiobook. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to read my audiobook. They go, no. We never let authors read the audiobook. I'm going, what? Are you kidding me? I go, I know. I go, this is going to be different. They're going, it's not going to be different. You're not going to be able to read the audiobook. I'm like, first of all, none of my friends can read. So they're going to all want the audiobook. Second of all, if they cycle in and get some professional reader.
Not going to have the same energy, is it?
No, I know. So they go, okay, well, you can apply. I'm like, what do you mean apply? They go, you've got to submit a resume, a video example of how you would read the audiobook. I go, okay, I'm in. That's neat. So I do that and they go, okay, you're right. You're going to read your audiobook. So then Todd and I go to Times Square on the audiobook. He reads one chapter. I read the other chapter, right? They say, all right, you got to go to New York for 3 days, right? I'm like, why 3 days? They go, because you got to read the book. I go, I wrote this book, right? I can read it in 7 minutes. And they're like, no. You've got to make sure that it's perfectly. And I'm like, okay. It's not going to take me 3 days. And so we get to New York, and I was right. It took me about 6 hours to read it. I had 618 mistakes, right? How can you have 600? I mispronounced Jeff Bezos' name. There's all of these formal kind of things that I was, and they're like, okay, you got to come back and correct the 600. That was a new record. And I'm a little competitive. A new record.
600 mistakes.
618, right? But it was super cool. I walk into a recording studio, and I feel like Jay-Z. I feel like Elton John, Sir Elton John. I feel like Bruce Springsteen. I'm walking in, and this is a pretty funny story. In the elevator going up, people are talking in the elevator, and it's like you're in a television commercial. You're like you're hearing people that you hear on all the time, right? They're like people who are recording these commercials, and they take themselves very seriously. And at this part of the podcast, you should realize I'm just a big goofball, right? You just had a big goofball on your podcast. So I don't take myself seriously. And they're like, okay, they're like studying, and I haven't done any studying. I'm just going to read my book. And they're like, what are you doing here? And they're looking at me. I'm going, I'm reading my book. And they're like, are you a professional reader? And I'm like, no, I'm Dan Tyre. Are you a professional reader? And they're like, yes, we do this for a living. And I'm like, okay, that's great. Well, I'm going to smoke you guys. And they're like, no. You have to really have the right voice tone. I got the perfect voice tone for the inbound organization.
That's it.
Right?
It wouldn't sound without that, would it? It's like,
I know. As you know, I do a lot of speaking all over the world, right? When I get on stage, I ask people, right? Do you want more information or humor? They always say both, which it's a standard question. I go, do you want the big energy, Dan Tyre, or do you want the like college professor?
Nobody wants.
I can speak in multi-syllable words. I can put in a lot of pauses. People go, no, get the wild guy. Get the guy who's going to scream at it, right? And then it all cascades from there.
Oh dear, that's absolutely amazing. I've got tears in my eyes, Dan. I apologize.
All right, I'm going to get your heart beating like a chain smoker running a marathon. Right? I want you moving quicker than like a hungry man to a free buffet. We're going to get your podcast listeners happier than a teenager with their first bong. How about that?
You've got it, mate. You've got it.
Okay, am I better than that Skip guy? I told you, this is going to be awesome.
Skip, absolutely. It's just absolutely blown out the podcast straight out of everybody. So you'll probably notice on this podcast, guys, for our regular listeners, we're slightly off script here, but it's absolutely awesome. And that's going to happen quite a bit. But if you want to connect with Dan, I just want to get this in straight because I don't want to miss this later on. Dan is one of the most influential people I sort of come across, motivated. I've been personally coached by Dan on the Sales Line course as a HubSpot partner here in the UK, and we sort of fully embedded in the inbound methodology. We've partnered other software companies in the world and things like that, but they're all about selling software and not about the result. What we love about Dan and the HubSpot community, and that's exactly what it is. It's a community. There might be a publicly traded business in the States. Global offices just don't want to be in Paris, Eastern Europe, Far East, et cetera, et cetera. But ultimately, the inbound is a process. It's a culture. It's a way of life. It's a way of personal development track. A way to build a sustainable business and a way to deliver increased results, not only for our agency, but our business and to grow as people. And our success is their success and vice versa. And that's what I love about it. If you want to get in touch with Dan Tyre, it makes a ton of sense for me just to put this in now. You can check him on Twitter at Dan Tyre. That's DANTYRE. Facebook.
How do you spell Tyre over in the UK? Is it T-Y-R-E? Or is it
yeah, that's the correct way, Dan. You've got the actually black round rubber name here, which is Tyre, not TIRE. Is it?
Very good, thank you. Just want to make sure somebody's not like following some Chinese tire company over.
No, we're good there. And obviously, you can get Dan at linkedin.com/IN/Dan Tyre 01. We are going to be talking all about the inbound organization, and I would also like you to go and check out inboundorganization.com. And you got the book there, as so have I. But on the inboundorganization.com, you can order the book. You can order that on Amazon. But also, there's a great load of free tools on there, like an assessment, some bonus content. It's like the M-Spot and things like that. We're going to talk about, no doubt, throughout. I mentioned earlier, just before we sort of get back and get rolling in this. For those who are a little bit new to inbound, there's 1,000,001 definitions. Dan's going to give us the official version of that in a bit more detail. But for me, when I look at this in its neatest format. Inbound meets the customer where they are and serves to help position all who are, involved in the practice, this discipline. It's a progressive business, and many go on to becoming market leaders and contributors in the respective fields when they adopt inbound into the business. But inbound's much more than marketing, and this is what we're going to be talking about here. So we're proud to be part of the inbound community, for sure. That's an absolute given as a HubSpot partner. A massive welcome to the show, Dan. I appreciate you taking the time. You talk about commitment. Dan is employee number 6 at HubSpot. The seniority, and I know Dan will sort of shy away from that, but the seniority at HubSpot is pretty huge. He's well respected globally around the UK, around the world. And Dan's up at 6 a.m. in Arizona, Phoenix, to do this podcast for us today. So I can't thank you enough, Dan. It's absolutely amazing to have you on the show. And how is sunny Phoenix today?
It's good. I just came in from Atlanta, and before that I was in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Oh, wow.
So I'm the luckiest guy in the world, right? First of all, please connect with me on all social media. It's not just Twitter. It's also Instagram, if you want to see pictures of my food. LinkedIn is a good one, right?
Yep.
I was on stage yesterday in Atlanta doing a telecom show. Right, talking to people who are doing cloud and voice over IP and things like that. And I asked the entire audience, connect with me on LinkedIn. Some guy came up afterwards and said, no, why are you doing that? I'm like, you're only as good as your network.
Absolutely.
Right? And I offer to help everybody, just like I offer to help you. I'm a huge Mike fan. Right? First of all, this podcast is a public service. Second of all, you just reeled off like all of the stuff that you're doing to help people. And you talked about that community. You talked about building that, we call it an ecosystem. Chapter 27 in the inbound organization is all about an ecosystem. That's so important, right? Because today it's different, right? The whole idea of the inbound organization is a little bit different, right? And I have a 38-year business career, right? I actually started in sales. I was a bass player in a heavy metal rock and roll band. I had hair like, then I sold books door to door. Then I did a startup. I was working for a computer store in 1983. And my boss, I was the top salesperson. My boss said, I'm moving to a startup. I'm like, what's a startup? He goes, it's a small company that's going to grow quick. I go, all right, well, have a good time. He goes, no. I'm going to take you with me. I'm like, no. I got a job. He goes, I'll pay you another $1,500 a year. I'm like, okay, I'm in. It's just luck, right? I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I've been married for 29 years. I got 2 beautiful kids. My first startup started at $3 million, went to $1.4 billion, right? It was hyper growth. It was amazing. It's called Businessland. The symbol was BUSL. It traded on the NASDAQ, and it was super fun. Lots of young people selling computers, like hardware and local area networks and training and software. And it gave me a great foundation for the businesses that I ran to come. My second startup was an agency, right? I started in my dining room, grew to $25 million, 8 locations across North America, about 250 people. And it was around collaboration software, Lotus Notes.
Yeah,
right?
I remember that, yeah.
It was training, and it was software development, and it was awesome, right? Had a great time. Sold to a Phoenix-based company. That's how I got to Arizona. My third startup went bankrupt. Yeah. Right. And for a hard charging guy like me, that was like, but it taught me business planning. It also taught me humility, which is a good trait to have in a leader. My fourth startup got bought out by Microsoft. And so I worked for Microsoft for a year. The vice president of sales of that company was Brian Halligan. When he went to MIT and he met Dharmesh, he called me up. Brian Halligan called me up. He goes, I want you to start HubSpot with me. And I'm like, why? And he's like, because you're a great startup guy. You got great startup energy. You're one of the top salespeople I ever met. And even if the software stinks, I know you can sell it. I'm like, well, I live in Arizona. And I'm like, I can't get to Boston. He goes, ask your wife. And my beautiful wife, Amy, she makes all the decisions. So I go, Amy, can I be in Boston 4 weeks out of the month? She's like, no. She's reading a book. She doesn't even look up. She's like, no. Right? I go, how about 3 weeks out of the month? She goes, no. I go, how about 2 weeks out of the month? She goes,
maybe.
No. No. I go, 1 week out of the month. 1 week out of the month. She goes, maybe. Right? You're much easier than my wife. My wife, she goes, we got 2 kids. Don't you want to be part of it? So then I go back to Brian. I go, okay, I can be there 1 week out of the month. He goes, all right, let's go. It's 2007.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where you're looking. So I work for Mark Roberts. I worked with Mike Volpe. Mike Volpe, by the way, he and I invented the term schmarketing.
Marketing, yeah.
You say it again. Say it like you're from Brooklyn.
Marketing.
Yeah. What is that? It's sales and marketing pushed together, right? There's a
Yep.
great and a funny story about that. I talked about schmarketing yesterday in Atlanta. And the first 10 employees of HubSpot, right? They were all MIT Sloan School grads except me, right? So I'm looking with all these smart people, and you could tell right from the very beginning, Dharmesh and Brian were very, very thoughtful about the scale of the business. From the very beginning, they wanted to help as many people as possible.
Yep.
And the whole idea of inbound, right, was it's essentially helping others do the right thing, regardless of your economic self-interest. It's focus rather than like generalist. It's treat people like human beings, right? And you're nodding at me like, yeah, of course you treat them like human beings. Solve for the customer. It's customer first. It's the full customer experience is your competitive advantage. It's evaluation of data and analytics. And of course, that's the way we run business today. Back in 2007, that's not the way we ran business.
It isn't, definitely not.
Right? You're experienced enough, Mike, to remember how you used to run on the seat of your pants. How you used to be like, that is my gut feel. And that's horseshit. You can't do that today. Now you got to have all the information right in front. And so the inbound revolution, I was there at the beginning. I was a pioneer. Everybody thinks that I started HubSpot. I didn't start HubSpot. It's Brian Halligan, who's a great guy, by the way. He was just over in Dublin. He broke his wrist, I think, but I see him all the time. He was a good vice president of sales. He is an awesome CEO. He's got vision. He takes risks, right? He hires incredibly well. He's an open guy, no ego, right? Maybe a little ego, but very, very small. And he's a great leader. And then Dharmesh. Have you ever met Dharmesh, Mike?
I have. I met him at Inbound 2017. We spoke it straight after did the product announcement on the main stage.
And how do you describe Dharmesh?
Introvert, but I think that's the natural persona. Is a tech, and it's what you would typically class in the wider scope. This is not a direct assault on Dharmesh, because like everybody at HubSpot, I'm exceptionally respectful, but he's a geek, and he loves
he says that. He would definitely agree.
Yeah, right? And it's funny, he's humorous, he's introverted, he's a geek, and he just loves just delivering. And what I liked about it, Dan, more than anything, when I've been in other software companies, obviously there's one not too far away from you with the old green badge on that's just changed name. And it was all about software, upsells, and they got them maybe self in a bit of trouble and things like that. But what I loved about HubSpot is instead of being behind the curve, catching up, HubSpot are inventing the curve, they're driving the curve, bringing AI in, what Dharmesh is working on the growth bot and things like that. It's just progressive. It's just there.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know if that's a combination of everybody. I'm sure it is, but I'm sure Dharmesh plays a big part of that vision to drive that innovative approach. So that's nice.
So you got it 99%. First of all, he's the nicest guy in the world. I've never heard him swear in 13 years. Number two, super smart. He would say he's a geek. Number three, no ego, zero ego. Number four, very, very thoughtful. Yeah. So I've been in meetings where Dharmesh and Brian and the senior management team have said, all right, do we want to help just our customers or do we want to help all of humanity? And I'm like, all right, who says that? He's like the Buddha of HubSpot. He is our spiritual leader. He's a super nice guy. He claims to be an introvert, but when you present to 20,000 people at Inbound every year, I don't know if you can consider, he is like no ego. He's got a beautiful son, strong relationships. He's a great guy. I did a Ask Me Anything with Dharmesh about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, where I interviewed Dharmesh and then he interviewed me. It was amazing, right? It was a packed room, and Dharmesh is like, well, what happens if I don't know the answers? I'm going to go, no, I'll give you the answers. I'll give you the questions before, it's going to be super. He goes, what if I forget? I go, I'll ask the questions. If you forget the answers, I'll answer the question. It won't be quite as interesting. And it was awesome. He comes from a small town in India, right? He's built a company worth $8 billion. And he's the perfect, and he always keeps us focused on the right thing. right?
Yeah.
He always keeps us focused on helping, which is part of the inbound revolution.
Yeah, just to follow on from that, we was at Ivan, and that's a great story, Dan. Thank you so much indeed for sharing that and that assessment. We'd have to get Dan Mish on if we could on the podcast and see if we could sort of do that.
He'd do better than I do, except he'd be soft. He wouldn't have the loud energy. You'd have to step on his toe for him to even like talk about like above a whisper, but he would be super smart. He would give you all of the details. He'd be super open. He's a great guy. I'm super happy to count him as a friend and a great leader at HubSpot.
When we was at Inbound Conference, and I remember him doing this, I don't think it was a keynote, but it was his session on there, and he was telling about when he got the invite from Tesla.
Elon Musk, yeah.
And Elon Musk, and he's like, "Well, I'm not going to go." What do you mean I'm going to go?
I know.
And if you, I'll see if I can pull the link. I'm not sure if that session's on YouTube or anything like that, but I'll see if I can pull the link.
No, it is.
And it's the funniest thing it's maybe not the funniest thing you've ever heard, if you like in the UK, Monty Python and things like that, but otherwise it is up there as the funniest thing in the world. Elon Musk inviting Dharmesh, and he's like,
that's the only problem with speaking with Dharmesh. He's funnier than I am. I'm like, come on, cut it out. I'm supposed to do the delivery of the good lines, and he's just naturally funny. And he's a huge Dharmesh fan, and thank you for bringing that up. We'll see if we can get him on the podcast.
Yeah, that'd be amazing if we could. So what we're going to do, we're going to move into the inbound organization. We're going to charge and tap into Dan's immense experience. Dan's background, I mean, we'll post it in the show notes anyway. Like you said, 30 odd years, the startup success that he's brought in there. Obviously today he works at thing, but he's more than a salesperson as well, as a senior level software executive. As I say, I class the education that I learned. There's a handful of originals that I call out there. A lot of the originals are dead now, so Dan's not at that stage, and that's awesome. And we want him to live around.
I like that. People call me a legend. I'm like, a legend? That's like, first of all,
but Dan, right? you know me, I'm a straight talker, and I don't blow smoke up anybody's. It's about being honest and respectful. And a lot of the originals are dead now. The Napoleon Hills, the Maxwell Maltzers, Dale Carnegie's, George Classens. And from each one of those, whether it's sales, marketing, finance, whatever, you class that as the original. I have Skip Miller in that sort of the bracket as well, and Dan, you sit there as well. So I've been honoured to be coached by you as well in the Lion course, and Lion 1508. It was an amazing experience. And
so that's the best job at HubSpot, right? I have 5 jobs at HubSpot. I work for HubSpot for startups. I write for the sales blog. I speak 60 times a year. I work with Katie Young Mack and Professor David Winehouse. You're taking Professor Winehouse's class now.
I'm actually in David's course now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so I teach about 100 to 150 HubSpot agency partners how to connect with customers over the phone, right? Every semester. We do 4 sessions a year. And so I take people like Mike. And Mike, you're a little different because you're an experienced person, and you've picked up the phone and called people before, right?
Absolutely.
And so you have no fear. Some people we talk to in the agency partner, they're great service agencies. They're great marketing agents, but they couldn't sell their way out of a wet paper bag, right? They have never picked up the phone. People, you got to call people, and they're like, what? I go, do you want the business? They're like, yeah. I go, do you want a business like now, or do you want to wait 13 years? And they're like, we need it now. I go, you got to pick up the phone. Especially millennials. They're like, no, can't we just text them? I'm going, no, you got to pick up the phone. And Mike, we call the people who graduated the class lions, right? Because do you know why we call them lions?
Because we hunt in packs, and we go for that.
Yeah, you help each other. You're at the top of the food chain. It's always better to be at the top of the food chain than the alternative, right?
Absolutely.
And it's the best job at HubSpot. You guys, it's an 8-week course. It's free, right? Unless you take a live thing where there's a small fee, and we teach you, right, these life skills. So much fun of how to pick up the phone and how to connect with somebody that you want to talk to. And so we've been running that program for 3 years. It's super impactful, super fun, and I love doing it.
No, brilliant, Dan. And to be fair, for any agencies out there who are maybe considering joining the HubSpot community, I'd highly recommend it. The education, it's sometimes even overwhelming. You can't even keep up with it because the industry moves that fast. And with HubSpot being just at the forefront of it, you can pick and choose out of that. But to me, Dan, it's a lot more than just that selling. I mean, that is the core element of it, and that's the massive thing. But, going through that course, we've restructured all those agency positioning statements. I shared that with David on the call. I was like the example on the call on Wednesday. David kept using me as an example, and he said, look, mate, you've got this nailed. I said, yeah, but it's all credit to Dan. It's Dan, and we just sort of shape the words type of thing.
Nice.
We've built all those playbooks in the app and, in the sales app, enterprise app and things like that. And it's just an amazing experience. So it's not just the sales. It was all the other circular education that, you give. And I think that's a great segue to get into the inbound organization, Dan, because that's just typical in a positive statement, not a negative statement. It's just typical of what HubSpot do, and whether that's Dan, it's an account, channel account managers. And if you're a customer out there thinking about, I need a system, stop thinking about, I just need a piece of software, because the software is just the execution tool. What are you going to do with it? What's the strategy? What's the education? What's the learning? What's the methodology? What's the philosophy? I did a keynote speech for Ryan Dice's digital marketer in London's agency training last week. And we talked about philosophy, strategy, business model, community, education, personal development, before we even actually got to what the actual tools are and things like that. And that's what it would do. So highly recommended. If you want a recommendation about HubSpot coming into the agency partner program, shoot me up. Use the hashtag #TheOpenMic, or just leave a message in the show notes before. We'll get that done. If you want a personal introduction to Dan Tyre, and obviously it's relevant, then obviously I'm more than happy to officiate that as well, or he will put you in touch with somebody in his team.
Boom! Even if it's not relevant. My mission statement is to do the most good for the universe, right? Which I stole from my 22-year-old son, Eli, who's the smart guy in the family. And that's the philosophy. People say, why are you still with HubSpot 12 years in? And it's because I like to help people, right? Yeah. I like to make a big impact, right? And any way I can help anyone, connect you with somebody, teach you a new skill, understand or motivate, inspire you to do more good things, right? I have a mentor program. I have about 35 folks that I mentor. I'm an advisor to a couple of dozen companies. I sit on 5 boards of directors. I'm full-time at HubSpot. I speak all over, and I'm an author. And I like to do a lot of that. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. Did I tell you that it's 6 o'clock in the morning? I had 2 cups of Guatemalan coffee. That's why I'm talking so quick. And I'm helping you, Mike, because I like to, right? I want to get the word out. The inbound organization is important. One of the questions that you asked me in the briefing sheet is, does every organization need to be an inbound organization? It's a good question. First of all, an inbound organization has those characteristics that we teased just a little bit. Number one, it starts with helping. Yes. Right. And most marketers understood that. You understood that way before we coined the word inbound, right? That helping is the right thing to do. That's the way you've run your business, your family, since that's just the way you were born. Number two, focus beats like generalist, right? So you have to be very, very specific because you have to have happy customers. Yep. Number three, you have to treat people like human beings, right? If we met at the dog park, you wouldn't say the same thing to a 50-year-old lady. You'd say to me the same thing to a teenager, the same thing to say to your son. Right? But people buy lists, they spam people, they cold call. That's just stupid. And in the old days, 2017, if you did that, you kind of got away with it. Today, I will never buy from you. No one in my network will ever buy from you. You are killing your brand. And some people don't know that. Number three, you've got to solve for the customer, right? It's all about the customer. In the old days, right, before the inbound revolution, right, it was all about the salesperson. And because I had all the information, you had to follow my rules. Today, everything's on Google, everything's on social media. So you can go out and get all that information. Now, this is a very interesting statistic. 1 million sales jobs will disappear in the next 12 months because salespeople have to get more strategic. They have to get more consultative, and they can't push. Right? Salespeople made a living for the first 25 years of my experience, right, of making sure that they were asking the questions to move you to the next step. Today, right, I am at your service, right? It turns out trying to do the most good for the universe is completely consistent with the mission statement of HubSpot, which is to grow better. Then the customer experience, right? In 2014, the average company had 6 competitors. How many competitors the average company have in 2018?
Oh, gosh, triple, quadruple that, I would imagine.
That's right, at 44. 44. And guess what? 75% of customers will ghost you, right? I bet you're not on Tinder, are you, Mike?
I'm not. I've been happily married for
all right. Just
20
okay, on Tinder, if somebody connects with you and then they don't talk to you anymore, that's called ghosting, right? 75% of people will leave a customer relationship and never tell you. Right. So we lean into what we call client engagement. We want to make sure that we're top of mind, that we're engaging with people on a regular basis. Right. We want to make sure that the way you differentiate is that you have, number one, happy customers, but you also have a great customer experience. And the only way to have a great customer experience is to be thoughtful about that, have a centralized view of the customer, have the right focus on the right niche, and then make sure you have the data analytics to support it. So the inbound organization is everything that I learned at 12 years at HubSpot. It is, the foreword was written by the CEO, Brian Halligan.
It is.
Huge shout out to Leslie Yee, who was my editor at the sales blog. Leslie is a Dartmouth grad. She's a delightful human being. She's super smart. She writes like Hemingway. Oh my goodness. This woman can take an average sentence and turn it into like a mystery. Oh my goodness. She's great. And then JD Sherman, he's the CEO of HubSpot. He's both funny as well as engaging as well as great. Right. And then we have John Kelleher, who is the legal guy, the chief legal counsel of HubSpot. When was the last time you saw a legal, like a lawyer, general counsel, be a competitive advantage? And he has the whole back office, how he turns his legal department into a creative or helpful in the sales process. And then we have Katie Burke. Katie Burke is the head of people operations. She's awesome. And then Hannah Fleischman, she does inbound recruiting. All of these are the things that I've learned about scaling a business. HubSpot's gone from zero to about $480 million in 12 years. And it's a special, the way that we've done it is, number one, that ecosystem we talked about. Number two, our great partner program, right? We live and die by our partners. That's why it's so critical that we bring you into the loop on these things. And because we're a mission-driven organization, and the inbound organization is all about how to become a mission-driven organization. Focus on those things that I just talked about and making sure that you're adding value all the way through the sales.
Oh, that's amazing, Dan. Just one thing I want to pick up, and this pricked my ears up in March when we started on the Lion as well, Dan. You may have missed it earlier on in that session, but what Dan has just said is, in the old days, and I'm going to put that in brackets, in the old days, 2017. So just for the purpose of dating this podcast, it's been recorded in June 2019, less than 18 months later.
All right, that's a funny joke. When I say that from the stage, people laugh. But this year, I'm going to speak at Inbound about the things that have changed in the last 5 months. There is a definitive difference. Have you noticed it, Mike?
Absolutely. But before, Dan, I didn't. I just sort of think.
I know.
I went through it, but once I've been exposed to this, it's like I can see it everywhere. It's like
you got to give a huge shout out to my beautiful wife, Amy Tyre. We've been married for 29 years. She's smart. She's funny. She's a yoga instructor. Right? And she's like empathetic and she's helpful, except if you spam her or you don't know what she's like, she turns into the Hulk. Right? She's like, oh my goodness, what a second. You don't know that I've been to your website? You're just calling me and not listening to me? And I'm like, okay, you weren't like that in 2018. She goes, Dan, I've had it. When these people call me and they haven't done their research, I'm like, I can't take it anymore. They need to understand what's going on. And of course, that makes perfect sense. So when I saw it in my beautiful wife, I'm like, okay, things have changed, right? A couple of other things. In 2019, when you have a stomach ache, you don't want a doctor, you want a gastroenterologist, right? Because, and this is why, things are very, very noisy in 2019, right? There's all these things going on, right? Everybody's like biting at your deals. There's all these kind of things. Over in the UK, do you have a AAA, the people who tow your cars?
Yeah, it's AA, double A, AA.
Okay, double A. Okay, it's AAA in the United States. Right. And did you know from AA, you can go on a Disney cruise? You can buy glasses. You can book a psychiatrist off AAA and or AA. And you're like, that's crazy. Everybody does everything. Number two, right? Everybody is disappointed, distracted, annoyed. And they're just like, when you talk with them, they expect that you know who they are, even if it's the first time they talk.
Absolutely.
Right? And plus, they have a short attention span. Do you know the attention span of the typical Brit citizen?
Oh, it's got to be goldfish standards at the moment.
What is a goldfish? What's the attention span?
7 seconds, is it? Or three or 7 seconds? I don't know.
9 seconds, and a Brit is 8 seconds. So everybody, that time to value, in the old days, you'd think about it for 10 seconds. Think about that. Today, like, no, we got to go. And then the competition thing. So it's a much different environment that we're working in. So if there's 44 competitors and anybody can choose anything, right? The distinguishing factor is the customer experience, what HubSpot calls the flywheel. So you've got to lean into the customer experience. What that means is when I'm talking to somebody, I have to talk to HubSpot agency partner in the UK, right, who have 24 customers and wants to double that number in the next 18 months. Does that sound like you? And I need to make sure that I'm that hyper-focused type of person, and then I have to add value in the first 15 minutes. Excuse me, in the first 15 seconds. Right? Yep. And then I have to make sure that I let you talk, right? Not the salespeople.
Pause.
That pause, like lion pause, but also pause so that I can listen to you, so I understand. And then the third part is I have to understand where you are in the process.
Yeah.
Right? To have good customer relationships, and if you don't have good customer relationships in 2019, you're sunk. You have to have good employees. Right. And so the inbound organization is how HubSpot set up 3,000 employees selling HubSpot in 132 countries by being a mission-driven organization.
That's the key.
And you can go to the inboundorganization.com, and Todd and I have put in all of these free resources. Yep. Now, Mike, do you like free stuff?
Of course, as long as it's got value and it moves me forward. I'm not quite sure I'd like somebody to come and drop 20 tons of free trash in my drive, but...
That's right. But if it moves you to value, right?
Absolutely.
Most people like free stuff. Number one, quicker time to value. Number two, you feel like you're special. Number three, the return on investment. Somebody said this from the audience. Why do you like free stuff was my question. They go, the return on investment is quick. And I'm like, yeah, it's instantaneous. You get one piece of value. And for the seller, for the proprietor, for the software company, giving away free things allows you to move very quickly. Right? Allows your salespeople to call and say, you're using the free stuff. Would you like to upgrade? It allows you to get to time to value more quickly. That customer experience is better if you use a premium product. The inbound organization is all about how to be a mission-driven organization. Right? Every business in 2019 has to be a mission-driven organization, and everybody needs to know about that mission. We just did a full-day workshop. Todd and I will frequently go to everywhere across the world. We do paid workshops. So we do unpaid workshops where we'll bring the content of the inbound organization to everybody. And then people will say, okay, I got to bring this to my company. Will you come on site for a day? Right? And we charge a fee. We come on site. We do a little bit of research. And then the first question with the senior managers in the room is, all right, what is the mission of this company? Right? And rarely will people know. And of course, the CEO and the board members, they're like, oh man, come on. We have it printed on a little card. It's on the wall. But unless everybody knows the mission of the organization, reminded on a regular basis, then it's not as impactful. At HubSpot, we have something called the M spot. And the M spot is your mission, it's your strategy, it's your omissions, it's your plays and your targets. And every single HubSpot employee sees the M spot every single company meeting. There are 4 company meetings a year. It's posted on the wiki. And so I know the HubSpot M spot. I know what the company is focused on. I know that our mission is to help companies grow better. And so it's very easy to take this mission and translate it to my role within HubSpot, which what we want to do with the inbound organization is bring that to every single company, because if you're not a mission-driven organization, you're not going to get the best people. If you don't have the best people, you can't provide the best value. If you don't provide the best value, somebody's going to go to the one of the other 43 competitors.
Yeah, and I think overall, and I mentioned right out of the gate, didn't I? HubSpot's a lot more about software. Yes, software is a tool that executes on it, and it's super important. But ultimately, if you listen to the value that Dan's just given there, the advice, and as I say, just to repeat, we will put all these links. We'll put all Dan's LinkedIn URLs, his Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We'll put all that on the show notes. But if you head over to inboundorganization.com, but just for the UK audience, guys, organization spelt with a Z, not an S, just because of the Americanized spelling there. But
you guys do it right. You spell tire right, and you spell organization right. Sorry about that.
But we will post those on the show notes. But it is inboundorganization.com with a Z or a Z. If we're listening, we've got some US citizens over here. And Dan, we've talked a lot about what inbound is, and that's fine. But if you just take it back about that, how inbound works, if somebody gets it, I get it a lot as an agent. Yeah, Mike, I've heard a little bit about inbound. just marketing, and we talked about it being a lot wider than that, but is it just about marketing? What is it? What's this thing?
So the answer is no. I totally get it. And it's natural because we started with inbound marketing and then moved to inbound sales and inbound service. But inbound is a philosophy. It's a leadership kind of program that helps you gain a competitive advantage. Right? Inbound and HubSpot isn't really the software. It's the philosophy that you want to help people. Right? And not everybody wants to help people. I was just doing a presentation in New York. Some guy stood up and he said, in the middle of my speech, all right, and you do not want to interrupt a Dan Tyre speech. The guy stands up. It's in New York, so it's a little bit of, rough and tumble, let's say. Yeah. And the guy goes, that's not the way we do it. And I'm like, okay, you just interrupted me. But he stands up and he goes, the way we do it is we call 120 people every day. I'm like, okay. And how many people respond? He goes, 2. I go, okay. And you think that's worthwhile? He goes, yes. I go, okay, you're wasting 98.5% of your time, effort, and money, but you think that's good. He goes, that's just the way we do it. I go, audience, if you're one of the 118 people that is called and has no clue and doesn't care, how do you feel about that call? And everybody started booing. They're like, boo. And the guy walked out. I go, I walked out. And I said, okay, here you go. All right, you have an option. You can continue to do the old things that we did 30 years about cold calling, spamming, that kind of stuff. Or this is your call to action, right? Do you want to be that guy? I pointed at him as he's walking out. I figured, he wasted 5 minutes of everybody's time. Or do you want to help people, right? Raise your hand if you want to help people. And of course, everybody raised their hand. They go, no. That's the old way to do it. If you do that, you're out of business in 3 years because your brand will be destroyed. I will never buy from that guy. No one will ever buy from that guy. He'll return 1 or 2% and that's it. Yeah. If I go in and say, Mike, how can I help you? Right? The philosophy of HubSpot, the philosophy of inbound is all I want to do is help. The reason I'm with HubSpot 12 years in is it's synonymous with my mission statement of doing the most good for the universe. And we're serious. The reason I'm on this podcast at 6 o'clock in the morning is because you asked me. And I want to educate you. I want to educate your listeners that this is the only shot you have. In 2019, if you want a career, you can do it for 2 reasons. You can help just to help. That's my MO. Or you can help to earn somebody's trust and awareness. And that's completely okay. But if you don't help in 2019, right, you're going out of business.
I would say you're dust, aren't you? You're absolutely dust.
Exactly. Helping people. Women always understood this more than men. When I started my business career, it was all this warrior imagery. Right? I'm going to kill the competition. I'm going to crush a deal. I'm going to close something. Women are like, no. Let's buy diapers for the whole village. Let's go out and help everybody. Right. And so as more women get in the workplace, more people understand the more you help, the more you gain. Right. Absolutely. And as I mentioned, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Why? I help all these people. Why do I help them? It's super fun for me. Right. I love being on this podcast. This is super fun. If I can help you grow your business, I've always told you that, Mike, I am all in. And we'll do whatever it takes, right, for you to achieve your goals. The way we solve goals in 2019 is we start with the goals and work backwards. Yep. And a lot of the stuff in the inbound organization, people say, all right, that's brilliant. That's what I want to do. I got a big heart. I want to help people. But what do I need to do to start? And I would start talking. They go, wow, that's a lot. You should write a book. And then my buddy Todd is like, let's write a book together. I'm like, okay, you'll help me write the book? And Todd's like, yeah, I'll help you write. Because he talks about lots of the same thing. Todd is amazing because he's all industrial. He holds 3 patents for lasers. Wow. Right? And I know. He's logical. He's tall.
Like the laser. Yeah.
I know. He is awesome. And he's like, no, we start talking about this M spot. First of all, everybody should have an M spot. If you don't have an M spot, go to the inbound organization. Yep. Is it with a Z or without a Z?
With a Z, with inboundorganization.com. And then you can hit the bonus content and you can actually download a M spot sheet. And then you can actually upload it.
And everybody, if you don't have an M spot, how are your employees going to know what the mission is? Right? And then you create your M spot. And if you submit your M spot, we'll review it. Todd and I will take a look at it. We'll say, you got this right, you got this right. Now you're a mission-driven organization. Now you're able to have an employee persona. Then you can have sales and marketing alignment. And all the things for inbound PR, that's Ileana Stariva. She's wrote the inbound PR book. And then inbound selling, that's Brian Signorelli. And then my buddy Justin Champion wrote inbound content. Those are, and then the grandfather book is Inbound Marketing by Dharmesh Shah and Brian Hallian. Those make up the inbound library. And that will show you, that will teach you. Also, go to HubSpot. There's a gazillion free things that we do.
40,000 blogs or something ridiculous.
I know, unbelievable.
Yeah.
My greatest hit is Always Be Closing is Dead.
Yep.
How to Always Be Helping, which is a blog article that I did in 2015 with Leslie Yee that created about 80,000 leads. 80,000 leads and 4,000 HubSpot customers. It's insane. Turns out I'm better at the top of the funnel than I was ever at the bottom of the funnel, right? And all the stuff on inbound organization, all the stuff at HubSpot, because the more people you help, the more successful you'll be. And this is the new way of business. This is essential. One of the briefing questions is, does everybody have to be an inbound organization? And if you buy into the fact that things have changed, if you buy into the fact that helping people gives you a competitive advantage, then the answer is absolutely. Yes. You need to understand, rally the troops, understand who you're focused on, and make sure you're doing more good than you.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan, one book that I'd like to sort of add to that collection, it's one that I recommend to all our agency clients, is Marcus Sheridan's book, They Ask You Answer. I get a Mark Roberge, Sales Acceleration.
A sales acceleration formula definitely belongs in there. That's factual things that Mark figured out. Yeah. Mark is, first of all, I'm a huge fan. I see him only once a year.
Yeah.
He's got 2 kids. He's got a beautiful wife. He teaches at Harvard Business
Harvard
School.
now, yeah, doesn't he? Yeah.
I know. And Marcus Sheridan was the original sales line. And Marcus, you ask, I answer. Unbelievable, right? And I've spoken with Marcus dozens of times.
Yeah.
He was the original sales lion. I'm like, Marcus, can I be a sales lion? And he's like, fire, knock yourself out. But he was one of the first HubSpot customers. He applied inbound.
To his swimming pool business, wasn't it? When he was on, it was just about to go bust, wasn't he?
And then he became one of these dynamic speakers where from the stage, he's got the big energy, right? You need a good speaker for your event. You hire Marcus, right? And he'll come in and he'll talk about what he's learned in the inbound revolution. He was absolutely a pioneer. He's an absolutely great guy. He travels all over the world. He's got an important message to share, and he's part of the whole inbound kind of thing. Yeah. And while we're talking about it, earlier we were talking about the inbound conference.
Yes.
You're going to be at the inbound conference.
Yes, September.
And you've been there before. Tell everybody what the inbound conference is all about.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, I just want to backstory just 30 seconds before, Dan. Going to digital marketing conferences, things like Icon, 2,000-3,000 people there, PartnerCons, things like that. Going to some of the TNC stuff originally. But so we got a good experience of it. And then we goes to Boston, and the build up to it was just feverish in our community, to be fair. And that wasn't just the usual feverish, I'm desperate to sell tickets, here it is. This place is sold out and to capacity. The speaker lineups, Michelle Obama, John Cena, Ed Catmull, which is, if you're not familiar with the Ed Catmull, he's the guy at Pixar Film Studios. We have a day on Partner Day there on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Rest of the week, you've got main keynote speakers. You've got Brian and Darmish on stage. You've got the keynotes. I mean, the security for Michelle Obama, we just drifted in and out. But here's the thing, 21, I don't know, Dan might correct me, 21,000 people, agency owners, business owners from all over the world, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, US, Europe, obviously UK. And then you sit on the keynotes and you're watching the stages there, but then there's, 15, 20 breakout sessions. So you can pick, I want to learn about SEO. You got Matt Barbie there, who's obviously director of acquisition at HubSpot. You've got Paul Rosa there, PR 2020, who's amazing stuff that we learn out of there. Then you get the usual, when I say usual, I don't mean that as an understatement, but circuit speakers. You met Jamie, my lad and producer earlier on before we came live on air. And I actually saw Johnny Cupcakes, Johnny O, and I showed Jamie the video of that. But he actually went to watch Johnny Cupcakes, very high energy, great story. If you haven't checked out Johnny Earl or Johnny Cupcakes t-shirt business that looks like a bakery, you should go and do that as well. But the education, my head was full. What I ended up doing, every time I come out of a session, I get my iPhone out and I'm doing a Facebook Live back to the UK just to empty it onto video in my passion and my thing, just so I could record it, because I think I've run out of pens, or I've scribbled down, I just can't get enough down. I'm typing, I'm writing, I'm recording. So I thought the best way is just simply, let me put my iPhone, let me do a Facebook Live, and after every session, I'm just doing a brain dump. And Dan, you talk about that on our blog, which, by the way, if you want to check that out, it's blog.thesuccesshub.io. There's actually about 15 different blogs that I actually did from inbound. What I learned from 5 things I learned from John Cena. You think John Cena was just a musclehead. Wow, that guy was amazing. absolutely blew me away.
I was a huge fan. Yeah, so the whole idea of Inbound,
Yeah.
22,000 people,
Yep.
all with your attitude, all
Yeah.
wanting to help people. It's inspiring. It's exciting. You learn new stuff. You mix it up with people from all over the world.
Yep.
It's an amazing week, and there's a small fee for attending.
Yep.
Boston in September is super fun. Bring a parka because it's going to be cold. It might snow. But it's definitely worthwhile, historic city, and I'm super excited to see you when we're there.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Dan. And I know we've talked and we've dipped in and out of this, but as we're just bringing up here, as we're going to wrap out, you know, the secret to how inbound organizations thrive in the 21st century, you've touched on the help part. If, you know, people are asking, how do I get started? Well, we're going to push you into inboundorganization.com. Get the book. You can do that there. We'll post all the books from Mark Roberge and Marcus Sheridan and Justin Champion and Brian Sig and things like that in there. We'll put the links to Amazon in there for the UK audience as well. But the secret, if you were to sort of cap this into sort of 3 pro tips, and I know it's probably doing it it's unjustified to try and do it, but if you were to summarize it in 3 quick things, what should I do now? What's the order so I can become an inbound organization?
3 things. Number 1, commit to being an inbound organization. Say, I want to be different. I want to help. I want to treat people like human beings. I want to focus on a niche. Number 2, on the website, there's an assessment, right? Nice. We spent a lot of time and effort on the assessment because different people are at different stages. And you need to know where you are and where you need to focus. And 3 is to create your M-spot. That's a 1-page download so that everybody understands the company mission, understands the company strategy, understands the company plays, understands the company omissions, and understands the company's targets. And everybody in the organization should have access to that M-spot. Then 3A is buy the book, and 3B is do more good for the universe. And then
and hire Dan Todd to come and turn your business around with that because
all right, Mike, I got to move to my next meeting, but that was awesome. Thank you for accommodating my schedule. We should do part 2. We didn't get to any of the questions. I knew that was going to happen.
We're just going to take a real quick couple of still shots as well, Dan, but I just want to, before I finish, I've got a pretty standard thing to do. Obviously, naturally, thank you very, very, very much indeed for coming on and providing immense value. I'll post all of Dan's social media connections, below there. And as always, we really appreciate you tuning into the episode and continuing your growth engine journey. Thanks again, Dan, for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Mike.
That's it. So as always, guys, go do the hustle, go make it happen. And we're going to catch up with you on a new Open Mic podcast real soon.
You have been listening to The Open Mic, brought to you by The Success Hub. To find out more and to get the resources we have mentioned in this podcast episode, simply visit blog.thesuccesshub.io and view the podcast section. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to catching up with you in our next episode. This podcast and associated materials is published under copyright to The Success Hub. All rights reserved. No reproduction of this material is permitted.